All right. Subscribers are notified. So, welcome, Wally, longtime friend of mine from New York City. And Wally Shekun is reachable at wash at renewingtheman.com. One word, renewingtheman.com. So, wash at renewingtheman.com. Wally, thank you for joining me today for a live talk on frontiers of relationship psychology. And we have some people, tuning into the stream at this point. There may be questions. Feel free to chat with us and post your questions. So, just by way of introduction of the academic part, relationship psychology could encompass marriages, it could encompass boyfriend girlfriend relationships as well. It probably doesn't apply directly to just casual dating or to things like Tinder. But I wanted to talk this time a bit about, what are the frontiers and what is already established. Probably the most incredibly accurate and advanced theory right now of relationships themselves would be called Gottman therapy. Have you heard of
Mm,
Gottman?
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
I
so Wally,
studied it. I studied a little bit.
did you? Did you?
Yeah, yeah, the Four Horsemen and
Yeah, the
so on
Four
and so forth.
Horsemen, the
Yeah, Horsemen.
Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eclipse.
So
Yeah.
that's probably the most advanced theory going, and I've followed this area for about 25 years now. And way back in the day, the idea of couples counseling was just almost you didn't even want to say that to patients because it almost was a guarantee of breakup or divorce, and it was so
Mhm,
um, not uniform in the way people were trained or practiced it. It almost was to the point of, I mean, there was family systems theory, there was this sort of thing, but there was not any kind of cogent model, that would encourage a couple to stay together. And the viewpoint was almost like, well, if we do couples counseling, it could go 50-50 either way. It could go toward maybe the couple stays together, and that seemed a bit random. And we have Geraldine joining us too, and James. Feel free to ask questions, guys, in the chat. So prior to Gottman, 20-25 years ago, couples counseling was kind of random insofar as what I could see it doing. And the advice we would receive is, well, it could go either way, 50-50. The couple could stay together, maybe the couple could break apart, but the couples counseling itself would be kind of a catalyst for either way occurring. And I was a bit of an outsider because I'm not a trained couples counselor per se, but I am a theorist in the area of human courtship today. And this all predated both Gottman and evolutionary psychology, which also is useful, but I think in a different way. It's useful in the arena of dating and what is masculinity, what is femininity, how do they interplay, how do they come together to encourage people to find each other in the first place. It's not really about keeping couples together, evolutionary psychology, but Gottman certainly is today. And so, a little plug for Gottman, there's an amazing training program that is lifetime access through Gottman. And he didn't ask me to do this, but I'm going to do it because it's useful. GottmanConnect.com, GOTTMAN Connect.com. For 150 bucks, you get lifetime access to the Gottman's trainings and their models of what is a solid marriage. They use a house as a metaphor with walls, a foundation, windows, doors, things like this,
mhm.
and it's highly useful. Now, I think, we also have Jeremy Fox, eminent therapist, joining us as well. And welcome, Jeremy. I'm talking to Wally Shekun, who is, I believe, a world's expert through his experience. in the area of relationship psychology. So Wally is about keeping relationships together, and he knows Gottman, I know Gottman, but we want to go beyond Gottman. So I'll leave it to you there, Wally, to riff a bit
Yeah, definitely.
on what you
Thank
know.
you, thank you. No, definitely. I mean, the Gottman, Gottman strategy, let's say, is very interesting. As I was going through my divorce, I looked into the horsemen and what was tearing my relationship apart, and during that time, I met a guy in front of my building that both his parents had been relationship psychologists and therapists, and he basically said it doesn't work. A marriage therapist doesn't work. So
Yeah,
or
yeah.
trying to save the marriage. Basically, what they're there to do is to be the function and to help mediate a you know a nice, equal, and calm uh,
Conscious
uh,
uncoupling, conscious uncoupling,
yes, conscience
which is
uncoupling, basically,
ridiculous.
which is ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
And we know
because
that
a war has started. It's a
the war
war.
has started
You're going to uncouple. I
because
mean, that's a euphemism
yeah,
for uh, why don't you stand down while I wage war on you?
exactly. Exactly. So, when we look at relationships and we look at understanding why relationships start to fall apart, um, oftentimes in the relationship, it's usually it's the male partner, the masculine, falling out of integrity with himself, losing his masculinity to the feminine and giving up his power and his masculine power and energy up to the feminine. How that works is, especially in a relationship where there are kids involved. When there are kids involved, the love that the wife has or the partner has for the husband automatically transitions from the husband to the son. We saw this with Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson, where he basically
Huh.
knocked her out one night. If you watch the documentary of Pamela, about Pamela
Huh.
Anderson's wife, why
Have
he
you
knocked
met
her out.
either? Have you met either of
I
them in
had
New
met
York?
Tommy Lee a long time ago in New York.
Okay.
But just watching that scenario, why did Tommy knock her out? He knocked her out because he wasn't getting his mother's love from Pamela. He
Huh.
wasn't getting the love that he was receiving from
Right. Right.
Pamela the same as when they were not parents.
Did he? Are
So
you saying he hit her? He
he hit
literally.
her, yeah.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
aware of
it's
this.
documented, it's well
Wow.
documented.
Oh
Yeah,
my
he
God.
punched her, he knocked
Wow.
her out, because he was so upset that he felt he wasn't lovable.
Well, that's kind of
Mhm.
an extreme extreme
Yeah,
reaction and
that's an
deplorable and
extreme reaction.
terrible. But
Yeah, but it just
how
goes to
many
show.
times have you heard of males? I mean, I've heard this countless times. Males, they get married, and then there is a diminishment of masculine energy, and there's actually a drop in testosterone when a male gets married. There's a drop in testosterone, a significant one, when first child comes along, and even in holding a baby, there is a drop in testosterone level. Not that testosterone has to exactly equal masculinity, but I've heard countless times as soon as the first child comes along, the woman's what Freud called cathexis or investment or
Yeah,
emotional energy and feminine energy diverts
diverts
completely
to the
away from the
child.
male to the child,
Absolutely, yeah,
and then the man's not a baby himself, but he feels this shift, and it's
yeah.
kind of like, wait a minute, what happened to our vows and all I've invested so far?
Exactly, exactly, and that's exactly what it is that transfer, that shift that happens in the relationship where all of a sudden, the attention, the sexual energy, the attention, the hugs, the love, that cuddling, it's often said that, a man marries his mother and the wife marries her father.
Mm,
So in
Right.
this case, what happens, what is, the father so afraid of that's going to be taken away from him? And he's afraid of having that taken away. Well, it's the attention, the love, the validation. And men need to learn in this age that and know this is that when you have kids is that energy, that shift is going to happen. And now the relationship becomes work. Now you have to
Ah,
be in integrity with yourself. You have to build your own foundation, your own love for yourself, your own trust for yourself, and be able to comprehend and understand without resentment, anger, and frustration towards your wife because it's not her fault. It's the fact that you chose to be a family and to
yes.
have children.
Yes.
So when that happens, that shift now, the burden of responsibility now becomes 100 times greater on the masculine, on the man. But if he is
Yes.
not in integrity with himself, staying within his masculine energy, what happens? He gives his power away to his partner in hopes of getting and or receiving that love. But therefore, he's going to be out of integrity with himself in order to get that. Why? Because it's encoded in him, it's bred into him from the way he grew up as a child with his mother.
Well,
His
there
needs
that
aren't being met.
I like your use of language. You're talking in, normal person talk. I would at the same time as you were saying that, I was thinking in more academic language. So
Right.
I want to speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
The first thing that occurs to me is to mention the history of psychotherapy a little bit. It's an exact, you know, inverse duplicate version of physical medicine as far as history goes. The way physical medicine developed is study of the male body. Uh, it was just assumed the female body probably works the same way when it comes to ordinary illnesses outside of gynecologic illnesses. The female body must be the same as the male body. And that was, eventually proven wrong. That was the wrong way to study males and females. But at the same time, the development of psychotherapy was the inverse of that. It was assumed that since females, flocked to psychotherapy throughout the history of it, and males avoided psychotherapy, we simply didn't study males in psychotherapy
Mhm.
until more recent years, until at least the mid 90s and beyond. We didn't pay attention to males or that they have a different need for different styles of psychotherapy. And it turns out today, males need to not emote and get emotions out on the table, except in cases of trauma, which there are a lot of. But just except for that one exception, males need to focus on goals, on succeeding and achieving goals. And those kinds of psychotherapies are what work for males. Now, to your point about babies and first child and this sort of thing, if ironically, if males, you're saying integrity involves trying to be a good father, trying to be a good husband, being a breadwinner, and this sort of thing, and the male automatically does all those things. But then if he, as you said, surrenders power, a different word I would use maybe for that is surrendering authority,
Or leadership.
okay, or
Leadership.
leadership to the
Yes.
woman, which the woman might even overtly request. She might verbally say, I need you to let me decide what's right for the baby. I'm the mother. My focus is on the baby. I need to take some of my energy away from you and give it to the baby because the baby's helpless. The baby needs it.
Hmm.
And the man is nodding yes. Okay, this makes sense. It makes perfect logical sense. So he surrenders some of this authority, but if he goes overboard, say he's a big achiever and he's like, I will work 110% of what's necessary to surrender this authority, and he just wants to knock it out of the park, surrendering this authority. What the woman doesn't verbally state, but unconsciously needs, that you called leadership, you could also say masculinity,
Yeah.
is is not just the surrendering of authority, but sort of supervising and leading, not allowing the woman, but encouraging the woman to be what she's meant to be the best mother she can be. He has to still be a father. And
Mhm.
so it's not a surrendering of authority as much as the way it should work is a co-leading with him taking a back seat, but still being a supervisor, if you will.
Yeah.
So one of the analogies I make, or call it an equation, if one has authority over anything, whether it's in the workplace, in the home, in a relationship, in a marriage, in any interactive human situation, somebody who has authority has got to have 100% responsibility for the amount of authority they have.
Yeah.
However, if one is delegated a responsibility, they need an exact equal percentage or amount of authority in order to successfully execute that responsibility. So I think what males miss is in this exact scenario you're talking about, and it'll lead to a depletion of their masculinity, which makes them unattractive then
Mhm.
to the woman,
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
they surrender the authority and are delegated responsibilities,
And
such
what
as for
happens in
making the income. So they get
yeah.
all the responsibility that
Yeah.
is not immediate childcare, like
Yeah.
making money, paying the mortgage, paying the bills, um, perhaps cleaning, doing the dishes, taking the garbage out,
Yeah.
all the things that females complain of that males don't do. The overachieving male will do. He'll say, "I'll be your garbage man. I'll be your dishwasher. I'll do all these
Yeah.
things you ask." So he does all those things, which are responsibilities, but she automatically wants to retain, unconsciously, wants to retain all the authority while he has all the responsibility. And I think it's that exact scenario
That's where the
which
resentment
causes
comes from.
the
Yeah.
resentment in him and in her,
Sure. Yeah.
because he's being unmasculine by not taking control of the same amount of
Yeah.
authority for
Yeah.
the
And
responsibilities he's
and
doing.
what we wanna add into that is the man's ability to be a decision maker, right? And remember, women are emotional all the time, 24/7. So in the moment, she may want to have this, let's say, control over him. But that's only in that moment. It's only in that significant period of 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't mean it's all the time. The man,
And it's not conscious.
it's not
And
conscious,
unless
but
she's
she still
a
needs,
titanic narcissist,
right. But she
then
still
it is
needs,
conscious.
yeah, and she still needs the ability to surrender to him, to the masculine. And how does he get her to surrender? He has to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And what happens in these cases is that men usually get into this position, then they overachieve, they start saying yes, 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 yes. But inside, they don't want to say yes, but they've given over their power of their authority and their ability to say no, or or delegate what they they will do and will not do. So we have to remember that men need to lead from a place of hearing her to understand her and not just respond, because normally what happens is when they respond, the woman doesn't feel heard, she doesn't feel understood,
Oh,
she
right.
doesn't feel seen,
Well, that's where you get
right?
the
And that's where she
colloquial
starts
term
getting,
mansplaining, right?
exactly, exactly. So you have
That's
now that man's right. And then what happens is the masculine starts to justify and defend and argue,
Right,
which really is it becomes a turn off for her.
right, right,
Right. And
right.
so for the feminine to be in the feminine and not go from feminine into her masculine and go into protective and defense herself, she has to protect herself emotionally. She has to feel safety and security within herself, not just physically. We're talking about emotional safety and security. So if the man is putting himself in a position where he's out of integrity with himself,
Right.
guess what? He's going to start to argue. He's going to start to defend. He's going to start to justify. Women hate that. So, what does he need to learn how to do? He needs to learn how to shut up and listen and understand what she is saying so she can feel heard and seen.
Well,
And then he can take
let
that
me role play.
information.
Let me
Yeah,
role
go for
play
it.
just a little bit. Like, let me role play an unpsychologically informed, average male might say to what you just said, he needs to shut up and listen. What? That's demeaning. Is this like a narcissistic woman I'm supposed to just obey? That doesn't sound masculine. How is it masculine to just shut up and listen? So what would you say to that man?
I would say to him, well, what are you missing? What do you need for yourself to be able to take the back seat and listen to what she's saying so you can save the relationship? Do you want to save the relationship or do you want it to end? Because at the end of the
Well,
day,
that
if you
sounds like an
continue,
ultimatum.
yeah, but it
Am I
is.
supposed to?
It
Oh,
it
oh, but it
it
is.
is. It is. If you think about it, because it becomes an ultimatum because you start to get into this behavior, this habit, and this resentment, and this anger,
Okay.
and this internal anguish, and all that starts to turn against her. And then he starts to have an affair, or she starts to have an affair, and then the cycle
Okay.
goes on and on and on and
Okay.
on.
So you're saying then, I think you're saying the way to resolve this for the, psychologically uninformed man, to put it into normal person language, would be to lead. It wouldn't be in the moment, but it would be the man investing in listening skill on purpose
Purpose,
in
yes,
order to be deeply understanding of the feminine, which is an expertise,
yeah,
which then lets the man be masculine through his
yes,
expertise,
and allows
and,
her to be feminine.
and allows her to be feminine. But it's a long term investment in his listening ability
Really, yeah,
that lets him remain masculine instead of
yes,
kowtowing and being a little uncourageous, little, obedient
yeah,
servant.
yeah.
Okay.
And we're
Okay.
not talking about being obedient and a servant. We're talking about, you know, if you're at war, right? If you're at war, who is it? That God, I want to say, is his name Yako? Yako. He's a Navy SEAL.
Oh, yes, yes. Not only a
So,
Navy SEAL, but he's like
but he's also an author,
he's an infantryman, an author.
infantryman,
He's like
right?
three different armed services. He reached the pinnacle of. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they talked about in the beginning of his book, I can't remember the name of it for the life of me at the moment, but I remember the story very clearly. They had six boats going out that the Navy SEALs had to go out, and they had the race. They were basically
Yes.
racing to get an idea of teamwork and what teamwork looks like and what leadership looks like, right? And one of the boats was, they were really good in other areas, but on the boat, they were completely falling way back behind, right? And the other boat was going forward. Why? Because one of the soldiers who's leading the boat, he was in the back of the boat, being the first man pushing the boat forward, right? The other
Okay.
boat that was lagging behind was in front of the boat, screaming at his men to row, not doing anything. So what's the difference
Okay.
in leadership, right? You show by example, right? So for the
Yes.
masculine
Right.
is leadership through example. So for we talk about stoicism, we talk about leadership, we talk about uh, men. We see men get angry at their wives, start yelling, screaming, and calling them names, and this, that, and
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
right? And that's the guy on the boat that's losing. But the
right,
guy on
right,
the other
right.
boat that's leading, he's listening to his men. He's taking responsibility for his men,
Yeah, yeah,
even though his men are slacking. But that is causing his men to perform much better because he is in there with them. If the man is not invested in the relationship as a partner with his wife, and he's screaming at her, putting her down, calling her
right,
names,
right, right, right.
right?
Yeah.
What
Well,
happens, right?
I have a personal example of my evolution in that arena. I've had many family members, wife, son, friends, even who many of them sometimes have preferred to not want to know the price I have paid for their welfare.
Yeah.
Okay. In surrender of some personal goals, or at least time off from them, lots and lots of financial um, hardship and surrender on my part to make sure that these people in my life are comfortable, and in many cases don't even know that there ever was a problem that I
Yeah.
solved. And 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I might have been, as a young man, resentful. Why would my partner not want to know of my hardship and team up with me against it? There's a case to be made for that, but it's more of a young man perspective. And my perspective today is, after all these years, my own mom, brother, sister, wife, son, they'd prefer not to participate in my hardship and surrendering to their
Yeah.
needs. And I can just simply be proud of myself for pushing the boat without them
Bingo.
ever even knowing
Bingo.
that I'm
And
pushing
and
it.
and the
And I'm
question
proud of
is,
it. They don't need to give me
yeah,
praise for that.
yeah,
And
bingo,
yeah,
bingo. And
yeah,
there's a question, do they need to know? Or the power that you are being masculine is you
probably
take care of
not.
a problem. No,
No.
it's not their responsibility. If there's a problem and you're aware of it and they're not, guess what? That burden lays on you, on your shoulders. And
Yes.
yeah, it sucks. It sucks. Yeah, it sucks. But at the end of the day, you're the leader.
Who should I
You're there to
share that
protect
with? Because it would be good to share it, and I think
you.
it's
You
my
sh-
male
you could
buddies, if
Your
if
male
anyone.
buddies, yeah,
My male
your male
buddies.
buddies that
Yeah,
have the understanding to be
yeah,
able to talk to you and guide you and not tell you to go against your wife. I mean, I think the guys that say, "Hey, oh, she's such a B, or she's such a that, or she's no,
yeah,
you don't need to hear that. You need to have friends around you that say, "Hey, can you understand what she's saying? I understand what you're going through, and let's talk this through. What's going on for you that you need to get out of the way?" And you mentioned something earlier about like emoting emotion. Yeah, sometimes we have to go out to the woods or get into a boxing ring or get on the boxing bag or get down and do some push-ups and emote that emotion of hurt and anger and frustration. But we don't put that in front of our kids and our family, our wives. We
right,
take care of
right,
it on our own with our men or on our own and just get it out of the way because once we deal with the pain and the hurt, guess what? We don't bring that pain and the hurt to our families. We don't bring it home. We leave
yeah.
it where we left it,
Well,
on the
that
bag,
gets
on the
into
floor, in the
trauma.
woods.
I
Yeah.
mean, bringing in a little academic thought here as well. A colleague of mine that I'm very close with, Dr. John Barry, and other researchers that he's affiliated with, like Dr. Martin Seeger, they talk about how males collect trauma, and because of our normal natural stoic instinct that I call the Hades instinct, we we just don't emote publicly. We
Yeah.
tend to not get to therapy with somebody else and get our emotions out, and so we collect trauma over the lifetime. And these researchers actually go so far as to say, if you see a male in a behavioral health setting including coaching, assume he's got PTSD. And that's pretty remarkable to be able to
Yeah.
say. So one of the things I know you for is that you're very knowledgeable about the impact of trauma, PTSD, in
Hmm.
relationships. And I've actually come to believe through learning from you and talking to you that when couples fight, I almost want to say it's simply one person's trauma yelling at another person's trauma
Bingo. You
rather
are
than the
right on the
real
money. Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
rather than the real authentic person.
Yeah. It's those
Is that
two hurt little kids,
yeah,
like, and mommy took away their toy and now it's mine. She took it from me. No, it's mine. He took it from me.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
that, right?
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, but at the same time, there's a deeper trauma, but there's also wound, there's also little hurts and the frustrations
yeah,
that cause
yeah,
the continuation and the ongoing of the resentment. So that's where, like, the wife says something to you and it's hurtful and it's painful and it gets you, and you have to learn how to bite your tongue and or exit and leave and say, hey, can we talk about this later? I need to go take care of something. Go
yeah,
and emote that frustration, that hurt, and get in the car, scream, get it out of the way, cry, laugh, whatever it is, get it out. Why? Because as long as that energy stays with you, that
yeah,
resentment is going to continue.
yeah,
It's going to stay there, and
yeah,
it's going to constantly bubble up when you least expect it, when you don't want it to, and you're going to say something really nasty, really mean, and you're going to just push her away.
yeah,
So the best thing here is to learn how to, we are told as men not to um, cry, but we have
yeah.
tears. We do cry.
But
We do feel
privately,
pain.
at worst,
Yeah,
with a longtime male buddy, but
exactly. Yeah,
probably by ourselves
yeah,
in most
yeah. But
cases.
yeah, in most cases, but it's okay to have a male friend that you can cry in front of, and he can hold space for you. Right?
Yeah,
That's why as
yeah,
men, we don't have that rite of passage anymore. So rite of passage is having that solidarity within the masculine, the young boys taken away from the family, I mean, not
yeah,
from the family, but away from the mother for age 8 to 11, and brought into masculine setting to learn how to be a warrior, to learn how to be masculine, to learn how to be a man, to learn how to be a father and a husband and a leader.
yeah. Well,
You
you
know,
get into masculinity and trauma, and that's definitely associated with relationship difficulties. It's a little bit of a different field, and it is something I'm working with expert and therapist Jeremy Fox on. When what you call rite of passage, I think the word initiation is relevant.
initiation, yeah, 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 awesome, yeah.
Initiation, and I've come to believe initiation is a fourth imprinting phenomenon for humans. The
Oh,
first three
absolutely.
we all know well: attachment, bonding,
Yep.
introjection of the same-sex parent, meaning I wanna
Yeah.
be just like daddy when I grow up, or I wanna
Mhm.
be just like mommy when I grow up. That's introjection.
Mhm.
But then there's a missing fourth imprinting phenomenon, which would be initiation. And since we
Yeah.
don't have any formal initiation rituals anymore, and weddings don't really count, they used
Yeah.
to for women, like in ancient
Yep.
times, a wedding was a funeral for a girl and the
Yeah.
celebration of the birth of a woman.
Yeah.
Today, not the case. It's just a contract today.
What is the rite of passage for a woman?
It used to
For a
be
girl?
marriage. I mean, throughout all
Yeah.
human history,
Yeah. But
it was
what is the
marriage and then
most
childbirth. It was
yeah.
childbirth.
But
Yeah.
there's a first thing that happens to
Oh,
her.
menstruation.
Menstruation.
Menstruation,
That's a
marriage,
woman's
and then childbirth.
birthright, and that's
Yeah.
her initiation into womanhood,
Yeah.
right? As men, we
Onset
are
of
taught it.
menses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as men, we have to be taught that. Right? We have to be given
Yes.
the tools and the understanding and the capabilities and have a structure and a foundation of who we want to be as the man we want to be. And without that, without purpose, without structure, without a foundation, we end up walking around, you know, aimlessly, not knowing who we are, what we want, where do we go next? And then how do you find a woman? How do you find a woman if you have no purpose, if you have no direction, if you have no
Oh, well, you
understanding
don't.
of
You don't.
self-direction?
And
You don't.
and even if you manage to get with a woman or somehow attract a woman through, humor, fun, happiness, and things like this, if you have no purpose, or let's say if you have no established career direction, you could be a medical student, not yet a doctor. You could be a law student. You could be a pre-law student, right? So you're not yet a lawyer, but you got to have some kind of solid trajectory
Sure.
toward what
Yeah.
you're going to be when you grow up, or you have nothing to fall back on as a man.
Yeah.
So,
And then that brings us
yeah.
right back full circle if you think about it, right? To the beginning of the conversation. It brings us almost full circle right back. Because what happens, if a man has no purpose and has no direction, how does he lead? How does he show up? How does he,
Well,
listen to
yeah.
his
Lead
partner,
with
right?
what? Like, where
Right.
is he even leading himself?
Exactly. And the same
Another
thing goes in
thing,
the dating,
you're
right?
reminding me of an important concept in frontiers in relationship psychology. I think is males and females have significant differences in their psychology and the benchmarks of their life trajectory, but there are parallels. And you just made me think of something I'd never thought of before, because I've thought of the equivalent of marriage, a woman marrying or a woman giving birth as benchmarks in her life. For the male, the giving birth is what his lifelong career passion achievement will be. Like, what is
Mhm,
his life's passion? And has he launched his book? Has he secured his book deal with a major publisher? Has he graduated PhD school?
mhm.
That's the equivalent of his childbirth, is
Yeah,
giving birth to ideas or what his career will be.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
Elon Musk, it was giving birth to Tesla and
yeah.
then giving birth to another man child, which is SpaceX, right? That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Elon Musk's childbirth. But what
yeah,
would menses be? Menses, the onset of menses for females, what would
yeah.
the male equivalent be? I think it would be the first time a man is utterly defeated. It could be the bully on the playground beat him up
Mhm,
when he
mhm.
was 12. It could be the girl rejected him publicly on the school
Mhm.
bus when he
Yep.
was 13. I
Yep.
think his because females don't love menses. They don't think the onset of
No.
menses is wonderful and it's this blessing. It's
Yeah.
a hassle to them, but it's the marking of the beginnings of their adult female identity, but it's
Yeah.
a hassle. So what would the male equivalent be? It would be the first time he's utterly defeated.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
from
And
there,
he'll
he
feel
needs
that
to
for
figure
on.
out
Yeah.
how to not be defeated
Yeah.
again, if possible. So if people are writing about this, they seem interested. Initiation for women, it's more than marriage and monthly cycles, says Geraldine. There have been
Yeah.
several through my 72 years.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and to speak to that, we're speaking is more on general, on I think to the point of how we become
Universals. What are the
universals. Yeah,
universals? Yeah.
how we become who we are in the relationship, and where it all begins from. From the wounding, from traumas, from childhood, from mother wounds, father wounds, and so on and so forth. I can speak to myself in that, like how I often, before I started really dating, and being in that cycle. I remember like 16, 17 years old, my first girlfriend, and utterly defeated, and how that I turned that defeat into a strength and said, "Oh, I'm never going." But it actually became more of a mask. Oh, I'm never going to be defeated like that again. I'm never going to let a woman close to my heart to ever defeat me like that
Mm,
again. So what happened
yeah.
is I put on this mask of super confident, super masculine, and I ended up with dating supermodels, and being in a very Hollywood scene in New York, and
Mm.
growing up in that environment.
Was that Heidi
And
Klum?
Yeah, it was
Did
like
you
it
date
was
Heidi Klum, or did you go to her
no.
Halloween parties? You did, didn't you?
I did go to Heidi Klum's, Halloween parties and Kate Moss and Naomi Campbell and all that, and back
Okay.
in the day.
Yeah.
I did, make out with Helena Christensen. That did happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was
I
in 1995 or 6, something like that. But that just gives you an idea that from those inner emotions and those young beginnings
right.
sets us up for life and who we become and give us habits and gives us the foundation of who we're going to be until we actually go and deal with it. So, in dating, it's the same thing. Like you can go on dates, you can be either really confident, cocky, and arrogant, and you're going to come across a woman who doesn't like that, or you're going to come
Sure.
across a woman who likes that cocky, arrogant, but that
But what
also
that
means that
wasn't real, what you
it
did. I
wasn't
mean,
real. No,
well, you dating supermodels, or without me saying any detail at all, another friend of mine, there's a story about Uma Thurman, without saying any detail there. But that's not real. I mean, it's
no,
impressive. Maybe it's impressive to
no,
some people, to other males, but that's not going to lead to a marriage or something
no.
stable and
It's a
solid.
very lonely path. Very lonely
Yes.
path.
Yeah. So
It's
if
a
we
very
were to
lonely path.
double back
Yeah.
to the very beginning, where I promised frontiers in relationship psychology,
Yeah.
um, let's do this, and let's head toward an ending. And I want to
Yeah.
interview you many, many more times, I think, in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. This is
Back to
fantastic.
Gottman. Back to Gottman.
Yeah.
So if really simplified Gottman and said they discovered four things that kill relationships for sure, and they're called the four horsemen of the
Mhm.
apocalypse, right? According to
Mhm.
Gottman, and they are criticism,
Mhm.
um, defensiveness,
Yep.
usually on the part of the male, and
Yeah.
then
Yep.
criticism can grow because of the defensiveness into resentment,
Resentment.
and then the resentment, usually by the woman first, leads to the male finally giving up and saying, I'm going to block you. I don't care what you say. And that's called
Yeah.
stonewalling, usually by the
Stonewalling.
male. But then
Yeah.
eventually the male will also get resentful. So those are the four
Yeah.
horsemen, right? Criticism, defensiveness,
Yeah.
resentment, and
And
stonewalling.
stonewalling.
And
Yeah.
if any of those four or all four are present in a relationship, it is absolutely headed toward divorce. It will happen. And then the Gottmans, husband and wife research team, they developed countermeasures to those four things and more.
Yeah.
And if I could simplify, one of their biggest pieces of advice is a learned skill that they call a bid,
Yeah.
reading bids. So a
Yeah.
bid is where the male or the female kind of turns and looks lovingly at their partner, or says, "Honey, you look pretty today," or, "Hey, can I get you some tea?" It's a little micro attempt, unconsciously usually, but you could learn it for it to be conscious. A micro attempt at love. It's like a little mini
Mhm.
love
Yeah.
uh, um, particle that one person sends to the other. And if the male or the female ignore it, don't see it, don't notice it, then that's what heads that
Yeah.
person toward
Yeah.
criticism and resentment.
You didn't hear me.
You didn't hear
You
me,
didn't see me,
and you didn't see me. I'm invisible.
and you would
And
understand
it could
me.
be the female or the male
Yeah.
feeling this
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
male who has had a first child definitely feels invisible
Yep.
most of the time,
Yeah.
because the woman's cathexis, or the Freudian term cathexis, means
That's just
investment, love
and
investment,
oh, okay.
goes toward the child. So bids are crucial to
Yeah.
notice and to return and to
Right.
acknowledge and to
Yeah.
see. So
Bingo.
the frontier of relationship psychology, what I would propose is this: that we take Gottman beyond just bids, and that specifically the bids need to be felt by the woman as knowing the feminine instincts in detail and honoring them, those
Yeah.
instincts, not the male instincts,
Nope.
honoring the female
Yeah.
instincts,
Yeah.
which there are, they exist. And for the female bid to the male, it can't be, honey, you need to be feminine like me
Mm. No.
and to be emotive and share everything, overshare. No, the
Yeah.
female needs to really deeply understand the specific masculine instincts, which Barry and Seeger are not discovering for the first time. They're uncovering
Yeah.
what has
Yeah.
been throughout all human history.
Yeah.
There are all these male instincts that are analogous to the female instincts, but they're
Yeah.
different. And if the woman really deeply understands them, for example, the male need to, um, let's say, to win. The
Mm.
males need to win. That's the third
Yeah. Yeah.
or second instinct discovered by Berry and Seeger is fighting and winning. And it doesn't mean killing, it doesn't mean hurting, it means winning, like winning a
Mhm.
sports contest or winning a prize or participating in bingo, what whatever it may be.
Yeah.
The male feels great winning in a way that's different from how females feel about winning or losing.
Yeah.
So if the woman and like claps for the man playing tennis or soccer or bingo or whatever he's playing, trivia, if she claps for him winning, that is a specifically I'm going to call it a masculine bid.
Mm.
It's a masculine bid. And for the man in how he listens to the woman, back to your advice about learning to listen as an
Mhm.
investment in a relationship by the male to the female. If the man purposely, consciously listens without correcting, answering, solving, just
Having to be
listens,
right. Yeah.
then he is doing a feminine bid.
Yeah.
It will be
How about
heard
this?
by the feminine.
Yeah. And how about this? We can turn it if the man doesn't put himself in the position to win, also meaning being
Yes,
right in the moment
yes. It's
with
his
her.
responsibility to manage his own masculine instincts and
Masculine.
make
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
grow. But if she could participate in that, that's where love and a true relationship come in. Now,
Exactly.
if the male clapped for a female winning, then some females who have the right personality style will love that and enjoy that. But the average on a bell curve of females
Mhm.
won't care that much that he's clapping for her winning. But if he were to listen well, that would be attending to the feminine.
Yeah.
If he claps for her
Bingo.
winning, he's projecting masculine onto her because he's the one that wants to win.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to win
Yeah.
at
He's
a
winning through her
sports contest.
vicariously. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same for her. If she were to applaud the male for being a good listener, okay, thanks. I'm doing that just for you because that's what you need, but that doesn't feed my soul. If she claps for you winning, even though that goes against her feminine, typical middle of the bell curve behaviors, it
Yeah.
would feed the male soul.
Right.
So that's the gift that we could give to each other, I think,
But
is
that's a
masculine and feminine bids to
yeah.
borrow from Gottman, but then to add evolutionary
Yeah.
psychology to Gottman.
And
Yeah.
the man can also take that compliment from her as a win,
Yes.
right? These
Yes. Yes.
little wins builds his confidence, and
Yeah.
he actually could take that as a win.
In
Not
fact, in your terminology, a win is like a thing that you describe males as needing. I forgot about that. I
yeah,
forgot that's part
yeah.
of
We need
your
these little wins, and
terminology
if
that you use.
our partner said, "Thank you for
Going
listening.
for
You're such a great
wins.
listener," yeah. Just to give you an idea, like I have a modeling agency here in Slovenia as well, and I do a lot of coaching with my models, and I can read them, I can feel them, I know what's going on with them. I had one girl who is a professional tennis player, and she was
Yeah.
here. I'm teaching her how to runway walk, and I could just feel her stuck in her body. And I just said to her, "It's like, what's that energy? What's that block here? What's this block here?" And I said, and I knew that she was going to the high level professional tennis. And I said, "You never dealt with the pain of having to give up tennis because of the medical condition." And it's like, "You never dealt with the emotion of it." So I asked her some questions, opened her up, she let out and she emoted the pain and the hurt and she cried. And 5 minutes later, she came out of it and she said, "Oh my God, you read me too well." Why? Because I just took the time to hear her, to listen to her, to allow her to speak, allow her to emote, and just ask a couple questions and not interrupt and allowed her to just emotionally
Uh-huh.
let out this pain. And she the next day she said, she came back. She goes, so I asked her, how did your parents feel when you got home? She goes, they couldn't understand what happened to me. It's the first time in 2 years that they saw me glowing
Huh. And she had to give up tennis for medical
because she had
reasons?
a medical heart
Oh,
condition.
wow. And so she's gonna go into modeling
Now she's going
instead,
into
and
modeling.
maybe
Yeah,
acting.
she loved.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So to explain something about Wally, he's very, very lifelong experienced in the area of fashion, having grown up in New York, and it's a real art for him. So just to share that with the audience. Well, listen, Wally, we got to do this again and again and again.
yeah.
I'd like
Absolutely.
I'd like to
This is
connect you
fantastic.
to other friends like Jeremy Fox, Rob
Absolutely.
Henderson, but we'll do it again. And people can reach you through Wash, WASH, which is short for Wally Shaykhun, at
Renewingtheman.com.
renewingtheman.com. Renewingtheman.com is the website, and Wash at renewingtheman.com. Wally is also
Yeah,
newly on Substack, which is where we are right now.
perfect.
All right,
Thank you
wonderful.
again,
I
Paul.
love it.
Appreciate it. This is
All right.
fantastic. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll talk again soon, Wally.
All right.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.